Hi everyone, thank you for coming. Welcome to the F-1 to EB-5 seminar. My name is Pete Calabrese. I'm the CEO of Can-Am Investor Services. Can-Am Investor Services is the wholly owned broker-dealer affiliate of Can-Am Enterprises. And I have the great pleasure to be joined by my friend Nikolai Hendrickson, here from Miller Mayer, partner, and one of the finest immigration attorneys, quite frankly, that you're going to come across. So we're really happy to have you here. We're going to run through some information about the different options that you have, really with a focus more so on the EB-5 program. Nikolai is going to lead us off so we can talk you through some of the options for all of you folks who are looking to transition from your F-1 or your college career here into something that's potentially a little bit more permanent. Nikolai, would you like to lead us off?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Pete, for that nice introduction. I am the managing partner of Miller Mayer's EB-5 immigration law practice. But Miller Mayer doesn't just do EB-5 law. We also do general immigration law, and we deal with students like yourselves all the time. We routinely give presentations that we call visas after graduation presentations, where we talk about the kind of options that might be available to you when you graduate. Many of you here are probably in F status, maybe getting towards the end of your F status, or maybe even OPT. If you're in STEM OPT, maybe you have a little more time to work in the United States. But at some point you reach the end. You don't really have any good options to stay in the United States after you graduate, short of perhaps winning the H-1B lottery. And of course, the name says it all, it's a lottery. The H-1B is a great visa for those who can get it, but there are a limited number of visas available. And so unfortunately, many people who apply just don't get it. They apply multiple times and they're not selected. Even people who are selected for the H, though, while it is a great non-immigrant visa category, people who are selected are then beholden to an employer, for better or for worse. Employers, particularly in the tech sector lately, have been laying off a lot of people. So many of my clients now, and I'll explain later why this is an option for EB-5, many of my clients now are H-1B candidates who want the flexibility of being able to find a new job, to leave an employer, or are worried themselves about an upcoming layoff. Or they want to change employers, right? Even in the H category, you can change employers. It's called porting to another employer, but that employer has to be willing to do that. EB-5 offers a really attractive alternative, and that's what we're going to talk about more today. So specifically, I want to talk about the F-1 to green card and what are the options. So all you students here probably have heard of Ithaca because it is home to what some think is the best university in the United States. I don't agree. I went to Berkeley. I think it's slightly better than Cornell, but don't tell anybody. I said that. We were founded in 1985, and we're headquartered in Ithaca, New York. So we deal with these issues all the time. It is our bread and butter to interact with students and to help students understand what their options are when they reach the end of their academic career. So, just in terms of the general overview of U.S. immigration, there are two broad categories, as you may be aware: non-immigrant and immigrant. A non-immigrant visa is a visa that allows you to come into the United States for a limited period of time. And depending on the kind of visa, there are limitations on what you can do when you're in the United States during that period of time. The most obvious example is a B visa, which is a tourist or business visa. You're allowed to come in and go to Disneyland, visit New York, but you can't work. That's an example of a non-immigrant visa with pretty strict limitations. But there are others, as I talked about. The H-1B visa is very popular, and that is a specialty occupation visa that does allow you to work. You can hold non-immigrant visas for many, many years, but there typically is a limited duration, sort of an end date. Most people want to live permanently in the U.S. They want a green card, and that is colloquially what we call permanent resident status. So with a green card, you can live and work anywhere you want in the United States, or you don't have to work at all. It's up to you. You can't vote or serve on a jury, but basically you have all the rights and obligations of a U.S. citizen, in essence. You can, once you are a permanent resident, also seek citizenship. So depending on the type of visa, usually in the employment category, after 5 years you can seek to become a citizen. It's only 3 years if you marry a U.S. citizen, but we're not really talking about family-based immigration here. We're focused primarily on employment-based. There are a couple of points here. Visa backlog, so if any of you are from China or India, there's a possibility of a waiting line. These are sort of complicated issues that I'm not going to spend too much time on tonight because they're very sort of fact-specific. And then if you have studied at all on a J visa, that makes you subject to your 2-year home residency requirement. You do need to satisfy that before you can transition from non-immigrant to immigrant. So if any of you have that situation, we can talk about that after the presentation. So the timeline, typically for a student, you're here in an F, and as I said earlier, you're reaching the end of OPT, and then you're looking for options. Most students try to get an H. There are some students that might be eligible for an O, which is for very gifted, really extraordinary students that do really accomplished work in their field. That's a very difficult visa to get. Hopefully then you have an employer that's willing to sponsor you for a green card. So transitioning from H to a green card is not easy. The employer has to sponsor you. They have to test the labor market in order for a green card to be approved. So they actually file paperwork with the U.S. Department of Labor, testing the labor market to make sure that the job you're taking is not displacing the job of a U.S. worker. And then, as I mentioned, you can transition and become a U.S. citizen. International pathway, you're obviously not here, maybe you're studying internationally. If any of you are going abroad to, say, do a master's program in England or something like that, you can still try to find a sponsor from outside the U.S., perhaps an H sponsor, but that's even more difficult, right, because the interview process is so difficult. But the same progression can happen under that scenario. You can get a green card and then eventually citizenship. And we're not really talking about family, but if you do have a U.S. citizen family member, there are possibilities potentially for them to sponsor you. As I said, the H is a great visa category. It's valid for 6 years. You may be able to work towards a green card if your employer is willing to sponsor you. There's no advertising or testing of the labor market in the way that there would be for the green card, so that's a good thing. And spouses can generally get work authorization. The drawbacks are an H-1 petition is an employer petition. So again, you are beholden to the employer for your job and for the continuation of that job. So it's not flexible like an F-1 OPT in the way that you can just kind of jump around and find different employers. There's the paperwork and so forth, and then it is a pretty heavily scrutinized category. So you do get a lot of RFEs in the H-1 context, but really the biggest issue is the shortage of H-1B numbers. It just is a lottery and it's not assured. It's not a predictable pathway to being able to stay in the U.S. What is a predictable pathway? Well, EB-5 is, and that's why we're here tonight. We're talking about EB-5. The program was created by Congress in the 1990s to spur economic growth. And at the moment, the investment amount is $800,000 if you're investing in a targeted employment area. Otherwise, it's $1,050,000. A key requirement of EB-5 is that your investment has to create jobs for U.S. workers. And we won't get into a deep discussion about that, but there are essentially two kinds of EB-5 programs. There's a standalone program where you might invest in your own business venture. Say you want to open your own hotel or something like that. You could actually do that, but the job creation part is really difficult. The entity that you create to build that hotel has to directly hire people who qualify for those jobs. It's quite difficult. In the regional center structure, which is what we're going to talk about, and Pete's going to talk more about that because Pete is a regional center. Regional centers are allowed to do economic modeling. So if you have any economics students in the audience, they will know that there are ways to test the economic impact of a project, say like a hotel development, where you're taking into account the construction expenditures, the additional money that those construction workers have in their pockets, etc., to figure out the job creation. So the bottom line is, in the regional center context, it's much easier to meet the job creation requirement. Why are we talking about EB-5 now with students if it's been around since 1990, you may be wondering. And the reason is that EB-5 in March of 2022 underwent a significant transformation with the passage of the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act. This act did many different things to EB-5, all for the better. As the name suggests, it was focused on reform and integrity, so making the EB-5 program better and safer than it was before. It was a good program before, but as in any moneyed industry, there are always abuses that happen and so forth, and Congress took a look at that and fixed it. As a side note, many of you here are immigrants. You know that immigration is a hot button topic in the United States. And it is a fact of EB-5 that it is one of those rare immigration programs that's actually liked by both Democrats and Republicans, because what does it do? It creates jobs, it spurs economic, it has an economic impact, and all of that is at zero cost to the U.S. taxpayer. So for those reasons, it is a popular program. So the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act did many things. But the most important thing for you, I believe, is that it now permits for something called concurrent filing. What is that? So I'll have to get into the process of EB-5 a little bit for you to understand it. I'll keep it relatively simple. But in EB-5, and in immigration generally, you get all of these form numbers, so I apologize for throwing them out there. But the first step is filing an I-526E petition with the USCIS, okay? And it used to be, before passage of the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act, that you couldn't take the second step in EB-5 until this form was approved. After that, you could either consular process if you were outside the US. Many of you have gone to consulates to get your F visa to come study. Same process. Differences in F visa is processed on a DS-160 versus an immigrant visa, which is the DS-260. A similar process. Alternatively, if you happen to have been studying in the US when your I-526 was approved, you could apply to adjust your status from non-immigrant, your F status, to immigrant, the green card. What did the IRA do? The IRA allows this to happen concurrently. That's what concurrent means. So you are now allowed to file with the I-526 petition the I-485 petition. Along with that, the government also allows you to get work and travel authorization the entire time the I-485 is pending. So when that is approved, the I-485, that is when you become a conditional green card holder. Normally, that would be when you would get all the rights and privileges of a green card holder. But the government, because you're already in the United States, with concurrent filing, allows you to get work authorization well before that. So what does that really mean, practically speaking? Let's say that you decide, hey, EB-5 is for me and I want to go forward with this. My OPT expires in 30 days and I'm going to be out of status. We could put together an I-526 petition for you. We could file it before you are out of status. We could actually file it even after you're out of status, but we want to get into that. So under something called 245K, that's a kind of a complicated area of immigration law. Let's say we're filing it before you're out of status. We file the I-526. Along with that, we filed it with I-485, and then an I-765 to get work authorization, and an I-131 to get travel authorization. Those two forms are adjudicated first by the USCIS before they even look at the I-526 or the 485. And in about 4 to 7 months, you will have work authorization. Usually work authorization comes first, followed by advanced parole travel authorization. Sometimes they come together on the same card. We call that a combo card. In any event, they're good for 5 years. So you're getting 5 years of work authorization within about 4 months of filing the I-526 petition. So imagine what that means for you. Instead of playing the H-1B lottery, trying to find an employer to sponsor you, now you have independent work authorization. You can go out into the market, the employment market, and be just as attractive as your fellow students that are green card holders or U.S. citizens. The EAD card is absolute legal permission to work for anyone, anywhere in the United States. And that is why concurrent filing is such a revolutionary change to EB-5, and this is why it's emerged now as an immigration strategy for students like yourselves, that it wasn't just a short time ago before passage of the Reform and Integrity Act. So that in a nutshell is the, I guess you could call it the EB-5 opportunity for students. Of course, it's a lot of money. It is a two-pronged process. That's why there are two of us up here. So I am the immigration guy. I help with the immigration part of that whole process, but you do need to invest into a project, and that is what Pete is going to talk about now. I would work with you and probably your parents to talk about how you earned the money, how your parents earned the money to make the investment. By the way, you don't have to have earned $800,000. Most of my F students, mom and dad are providing all the funds. We have lots of strategies for that. But you do, in addition to choosing an immigration lawyer to advise you in this process, you need to find a project. And that is what Can-Am has been doing for so long and so well. Miller-Mayer and Can-Am are not affiliated in any way. I don't work for Pete, I work with Pete. Many of my clients have invested in Can-Am projects, but we are independent. I think that's important to mention. But with that, I think I'll go ahead and turn it over to Pete.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nikolai. I'm sure the space will be here for a second so I can control the screen a little. But thank you. And thank you for that education. It's educational for me because one of the key things that you will need to decipher as you're going through and you're looking at your future and you're deciding what's next really is what your best pathway is. Right? Because there are definitely a number of pathways, as Nikolai had mentioned, because EB-5 is a very unique immigration opportunity. It's one of the best pathways, it's one of the most straightforward pathways to getting a green card, to getting permanent residency, and ultimately citizenship. But it is a decision that you'll have to figure out and make sure that this is the correct pathway for you. As Nikolai had mentioned, one of the great things about an EB-5 investment, or what we really greatly appreciate, is we get to work with law firms like Miller-Mayer on our investments and on their investments for one of our projects, but they, to be very clear, are your attorney. They're not working with us. They're not working with you. So any questions that you have as an applicant or an EB5 investor about your immigration process would go to that. Much like any process that you have about, say, like your investment portion of it would come to us. Which leads me to Can-Am. Can-Am, we are a regional center operator. As Nikolai had mentioned, there are two different ways of going to an EB5 investment, but we are a regional center operator. And a regional center basically is just a geographical designation that allows you to sponsor a project within it. Can-Am has multiple regional centers around the country, which allows us to sponsor projects in all these different portions of the country. But ultimately, that is what we are, and we are more of, when you look at the immigration side of things, we are specifically an EB5 company. That is what we do, and it's what we do well. For us, the core things that we're looking to accomplish for you is to get you your full immigration and to get you your repayment of funds. That is really the core tenets of an EB5 investment. But we also want to make sure that we are representing ourselves and representing you with the values we put into our company. And that is to make sure that we are giving you a conservative project that is very well structured, a project that gives you the best likelihood of getting you those goals, but also a project that allows us to be quite frank, to sleep at night. Our founder, still president and CEO, Tom Rosenfeld, says all the time, I wouldn't put together a project that I wouldn't put my own mother into, and this is really the credence that we live by. Just to make sure that we feel comfortable putting you into this, because we know that this is one of the larger investments that your family might make, but it's certainly one of the most personal that you would make. So making sure that you do this and do this right is very, very important to us, and we hold that responsibility very, very dear. Give you a little background on Can-Am. The firm has now been working in immigration-linked business investments for over 35 years. The firm was founded in 1987 by Tom Rosenfeld in the Canadian version of their immigration-linked investments. We transitioned to the EB5 program in the early 2000s, in 2002. And just last year, we celebrated our 20th anniversary of working exclusively in the EB5 program, something that we're very, very proud of. We've now been working in EB5 for over 20 years. At this point, we've now sponsored the project that we have coming up next will be our 72nd project. We've raised over $3.5 billion of EB5 funding. We have over 5,200 individual I-526 petition approvals. And an I-526 petition provides for the investor, their spouse, and any children under the age of 21 to be able to come and get their green card. Now, for many of you, if you do end up going forward with EB5, you would likely be doing it just for yourself. But if you did have someone, or if someone were to go through that pathway and they did have a family, those dependents would be represented in that family as well. But because of that, the 5,200 I-526 petition approvals that we have received has amounted to over 15,000 green cards being advanced to our clients. Any of those metrics are near the top of the industry in terms of their level of accomplishment. But where we really differentiate ourselves is we have over 2,600 individual I-829 petition approvals, which amounts to over 8,000 unconditional green cards that have been advanced to our clients. Getting those conditions removed from your green card is obviously the goal that you're ultimately looking at when going into an investment like this. And we have repaid $2.27 billion to our investors, far and away the industry leader in terms of getting our money back to our clients. I would venture to say that there are very few regional centers that have even come close to $1 billion of capital repayment. So these are things that we take very seriously, that we're very proud of, but we work very hard to continue to achieve for you. Because again, you're putting this much into this, we need to make sure that we're giving you that much in return. A bunch of when we look and we talk about the individual projects that we have structured, these will be specific offerings that we work with other groups to facilitate. So over the years, we've worked with a number of very high-end, very affluent borrowers, groups like Tishman Spires, very well-known developers, like Sony, Comcast. We've worked with the SEPTA system, the public transit system in the city of Philadelphia. We've also worked frequently with financial firms such as Fortress Investment Group. Very, very well-known, very, very affluent companies, and groups that understand and meet the standard that we're looking at and making sure that we're having a productive project. The benefits of EB-5, there are many. As Nikolai had mentioned, this is one of the most direct pathways to getting a green card, which once received, even once you receive just that first conditional green card, provides you with all of the access to many of the services that a citizen would have. The ability to work, the ability to travel, very specific for many of you in this room, the ability to pay, to not have to pay international fees for your tuition, the ability to have access to financial markets, all of these sorts of things that might be a little bit more difficult, having a bank account, any of these sorts of things as a foreign national are there for you to take advantage of as an EB-5 investor. Not to mention, obviously, the pathway towards citizenship and full immigration. As Nikolai had mentioned, the ability to concurrently file to be able to move forward is such a huge advantage, and it's such a huge change that has been tremendously well received by the market, as we can see for the number of people that are coming and taking advantage of this option, because that concurrent filing is not just the ability to move forward in a more rapid way. It's giving you that access to more rapid benefits that come with it. The EAD, the ability to work, and the ability to travel. So it's really a fantastic opportunity. It is not for everyone because it is a substantial amount of money. But when done right, as Can-Am does, it really gives you such a great pathway towards the benefits that you're looking for. I'd also like to introduce to you my colleague, Aloni Desai.
Thank you.
Aloni.
Hi everyone, pleased to meet you. My name is Aloni Desai. I work with Pete at Can-Am as a senior associate. I know we pass around business cards, but I would be happy to be the first point of contact here at Can-Am to answer any questions you have about the EB-5 process, how we can help you with your immigration goals. Myself coming from a family of immigrants, I understand firsthand the profound impact an EB-5 can have on you and your future. So, please do not hesitate to reach out to chat, and I look forward to speaking with all of you. Thank you.
I know there's a lot of information we threw at you. Definitely happy to hear your questions. We'd love to have you send those to us. For all of you guys, we'll be happy to circulate this. We're doing a recording of this as well. We can send that around, make sure that you have a chance to review. If you, your parents, any of your friends or colleagues have any questions, we'd be happy to answer. Myself, Aloni, Nikolai, and thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.